Dear students, it is the second video for week 15, lecture 29, and we are talking about Pakistan's infrastructural and the social development. Dear students, in the first video, we came to know that the physical structure like roads, building, transport, hospitals, airport, ships, and shipyards, harbors, they are included in the physical infrastructure, whereas social security, education, entertainment, and the peace of mind are the basic requirements for the people living in a country, and they all include in the infrastructural and the social development. Well, infrastructural development is the key to provide the basic necessities to the people and to improve the economy and take the maximum benefit from the natural resources available. If a country has a weak infrastructure, for example, if they don't have roads, if they have no means of transportation, they lack in technology, they lack in manpower, they lack in accessing to the international market, that country, however, is enriched with lots of minerals and they have hidden potential, yet that is not value in the eyes of the world, and they are not taking the due benefit out of that treasure. Thereby, social and infrastructure development is the key. Let's an overview about Pakistan's past and the present condition, so that we may assess that up till now how much social development has Pakistan made, and to assess logically that what remained the most obvious obstacles in our way to progress and prosperity. Dear students, as you are aware that the British captured entire India almost in 1857, and India since then had never been united, or had rarely been united under one major government. It was perhaps Aurangzeb Alamgir, the last emperor who had united India, but that was really for a short time. But later on, British came and they started the policy of divide and rule, and so they gobbled most of the resources and exported those resources to England and the European markets. But after after a precise time, British realized the need of developing infrastructure in subcontinent. Well, you find the basic, like they introduced a government management system, bureaucracy, legal system, and many others. Secondly, they introduced the railway and constructed railway throughout India. Third, they constructed the world's best irrigation system, that is known as canal system, prevailing in Indian Punjab and Pakistani Punjab, and is still facilitating the people. Plus, they had made many land reforms in throughout subcontinent. Plus, they had many other things. I mean, they developed universities in Kolkata, Higli, Bombay, uh, especially in, for example, in Lahore and many other areas. But one thing that was open biasness of the British, that the areas where the people didn't like British or they faced most of the confrontation, British didn't develop infrastructure in those areas as for the punishment. And you find that most of the British infrastructure of all types is all inherited by India, whereas the areas on which Pakistan is comprising had not any developed infrastructure except the few chunks. Let's, for example, the areas of KPK, Balochistan, Sindh, and Gilgit Baltistan, and all other areas. Here, the British faced the crucial fight. The freedom fighters never subdued to the British slavery. That's why British didn't develop structure. Secondly, the culture of these countries, areas, lands were entirely different, and that was difficult for the people and the local lords to synchronize with the British. Well, the terrain of these areas is, mostly are the highlands, the Regi mountains, plateaus, deserts. Fine. So, physical infrastructure was likely to be tough for the British because the cost was exceeding and output was quite less. Only few areas, for example, Quetta, that was Quetta and Peshawar and other areas, that was the need of the British to keep eye on the vast lands of the Central Asia. However, British had a very important plan of annexing or connecting subcontinent or Eurasian plate through roads and railway with the British and the Central Asia. Yet, at the time, that a Russian Revolution had occurred and communists aspired to capture or hold on these lands, that was really a terror for the British. Thereby, they didn't develop any advanced structure except the military presence in these areas. And similar was the situation in the Bengal, East Pakistan, that Hindus didn't like the areas thickly populated by the Muslims may have any progress. Thereby, they were against the division of Bengal in 1906, and most of the time those areas remained under the strong British rule and very staunch Hindu biasness, and unfortunately those areas remained underdeveloped. Well, now in 1947, at the precise moment of partition, Pakistan inherited the more poor infrastructure development. Number one, as I explained, that already this area on which Pakistan comprised was quite less educated. People were not technical. Here, the landowners or the landlords were the masters. People didn't have any uh, government job opportunities. There was quite less industry. Means of transportation was quite limited. The only three major cities Pakistan had: Karachi, three or four: Karachi, Lahore, Dhaka, Chittagong, Quetta, Peshawar, or some other city. Clear? Most of the remaining cities now are included in the list of big cities were very small towns, and they hardly had any proper route. Well, similar situation prevailed. When Pakistan came into being, same problems persisted, plus the other turmoils. Like Pakistan was in continuous war with India right from 1947 when Pakistan movement started. Clear? Border disputes, inhabitation and rehabilitation of the people migrating from India to the present Pakistani lands, corruption, lack of educated people, lack of resources. Plus, it was 1947 and the World War had just over. And in the division of assets, Pakistan was provided outdated, almost vitiated, worn out military equipment. Fine. Plus, the money was to be given to Pakistan out of the collective treasury was not provided to Pakistan. These are the basic problems that Pakistan remained under, and still now we are going under the same pressure. Well, the story of Pakistani infrastructural development and the social development remains indulating from 1947 to 1958. This tenure, as I explained in my initial lectures, was quite influctuating, uncertain due to political instability, lack of leadership, and assassination of the top leaders in Pakistan, like Khan Liaquat Ali Khan. Military entry, unnecessary establishment, military and civil intrusion in the newly born country really gave a huge dent, and thus it created a lots of tension and unrest among the political leaders and public. And later on, the other issues like famine, communal violence, problems like language, social instability, lack of resources, they led to a severe war among the authorities and the local and the people. And unfortunately, we had to bear a huge loss in 1971. Well, that is a painful story, yet the real story starts when Ayub Khan took the control of the country. However, that was not ideal, yet it came to be a very ideal for Pakistan in terms of the infrastructure and the social development. Ayub Khan settled boundary disputes with India and China. In 1960, the water dispute with India was settled with the mediation of World Bank, and Pakistan was given the right of water over three major rivers: Sindh, Chenab, and Jhelum. Pakistan constructed dams Tarbela, Mangla, and other dams were constructed. Roads were constructed, and agriculture reforms were made. Dr. Mahbub ul Haq and other scientists or the economists from the Harvard University provided assistance to Ayub Khan, and they chalked out 5 years green revolution. People from Pakistan were given opportunity to settle in the other countries, and they started sending the remittances. Pakistan requested America, France, and Germany to help out Pakistan in technical terms. So their countries established industries, trained the people, and then the mills and factories started coming in the country. However, in that time, owing to the dictatorship, some families took the greatest advantage and they were able to hold almost 60% of the total resources of Pakistan, and still these 33 families now are quite notorious, having controlled the entire business and the income of the country. Well, uh, these 10 years were excellent in terms of education, schools, colleges, universities, technical uni- colleges and were established. Uh, Curriculum was developed. People were provided more opportunities of the uh, entertainment. Radio Pakistan television was came first time in Pakistan, and they started their activities. So this is a precise discussion the about the infrastructural development in Ayub Khan era. But later on, in 1971, Pakistan faced the worst phase of history, and then Pakistan completely was in shock and disarray. But in 1973, once again, country took the advantage under the leadership of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. In 1973, major constitution, the consensus constitution of 1973 was emerged. The the departments of the state were properly chalked out, and the responsibilities were chalked, and then steel mill with the help of Russia was established in Karachi. That was a major project of that time. Plus, other explorations in minerals were made, and Pakistan took a very great step, realizing the arc enemy India, that Pakistan decided to develop atomic program. So, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, in coordination with the military and secret agencies, worked on the same project. Dr. Abdul Qadir Khan and the other scientists were invited to Pakistan. Kauta Research Laboratories framed, and then Pakistan was able to design the missiles like Hataf and Hataf 1, Hataf 2, plus the Pakistan was able to enrich the uranium successfully. Then the Kamra Mirage rebuilt factory and Texla Wa industries, ordnance factories were developed, and Pakistan took a lead in designing the local equipment. Later years, Pakistan kept a steady progress on missile program, designing equipments and weapons. Plus, the mega leap came to be in cooperation with Chinese in designing a latest, say, aircraft, and that was JF 17 Thunder program. Now it is quite successful, and JF 17 Thunders are the second major force in Pakistan air defense after the F-16 by Americans. Well, recently Pakistan is designing frames in collaboration in drones in collaboration with Turkey. Pakistan is advancing in the equipment about the sea warfare. I think it's more than enough. Thank you very much.